What's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. My name is Matt Striker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place if you want to dominate. Season-long fantasy managers, you're in the playoffs. We've got you covered. Let's do this. DFS, there's still money on the table. Let's grab that. Straight up wagering, it's how we make our living. At SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, those are the social media handles. Just do yourself a favor. Double check that you're following along. We're going to take some information from there, just have a conversation with you guys. But the man is here, Joey P., the author of the Fantasy Black Book, Joe Pisapia. Boy, you have changed the way. I didn't call you boy. It's boy, comma. Like, boy, man, you've changed the way that people have just watched sports, won at sports. And I think that's the best part of having these weekly discussions with you. We're going to wait for some of the conversations to come in about the start sit. But before we get into that, Joe, just really quickly, the Fantasy Black Book, I mean, especially now, do people come up to you and say thank you? All kidding aside, do you understand what you've done?
I don't know, but I understand. It's just I got to keep my head down and keep doing it. That's all that matters, because you're only as good as last week. You're only as good as last season. That's like there's all the platitudes and cliches that I learned. This is what I've learned from working in sports all this time. Is you just about the next game. But I will say this: just updated the baseball black book, which is now available on Amazon. So if you want to go out there, get yourself something nice for Christmas, get it for somebody else, maybe not somebody in your league, but somebody else too. Go out there. It's on Amazon right now. You get your fantasy baseball black book. Just updated it too. And of course, as soon as I updated it, Christian Walker signed. So of course I got to update it again. But I'll get to it early this week. Don't worry, it'll be up there. But Matt, this is the most important start sit of 2024 until next week, of course.
Yep, agree wholeheartedly. Let's dive into it. Remember, at SportsGrid TV. Let's keep this conversation going. The first question's coming in, and this is a good one because we've been seeing this name all over waiver wire. So is it Kendre Miller from New Orleans? I mean, whom else? At Green Bay, or is it Tajay Spears, Tennessee, new quarterback at Indianapolis? Let's talk. Start sit. Kendre Miller, Tajay Spears.
Yeah, right now it looks like Tony Pollard is going to play. He was questionable with the ankle injury, so a lot of people were feeling, okay, maybe a little bit more Tajay Spears, and that might still come to fruition. It might be the case. Kendre Miller has had an interesting ride. He and Dennis Allen did not get along. There was a lot of questions about Kendre Miller's effort level. So this is year 2 for Kendre Miller, and he's barely been on the field for 2 seasons. Now, granted, Alvin Kamara being on the field hampered him a bit, but also a lot of questionable injuries, a lot of questionable missed time. So Kendre Miller wants to stay on this roster. This is a big game for him coming up tomorrow. So I'm going to lean towards Kendre Miller, despite the fact it's not a good game script. It's not a good situation. I just don't know with Spears and Pollard, again, things getting cut in half. I think I'll take my chances with the guy who is getting the quote-unquote full workload, and I expect Miller to do that. And Miller looked pretty good last week doing it against the Washington Commanders. So I'm going to go ahead with Kendre Miller, despite the matchup concerns, despite the weather concerns. I just think I'm going to play the volume, and in fantasy, sometimes the volume is the right play.
All right, continuing on here. Oh, I like this one. One of the few games that the Lions will play out of doors. We often call Jared Goff an indoor cat. Well, he's at Chicago Soldier Field. Jameson Williams. Or is it Deebo Samuel at Miami? This is a great one here. Joe, start sit, Williams or Deebo?
There's a lot of people unhappy with Deebo Samuel. A lot. And I get it. I mean, look, man, there's nothing you can do about it, right? 7 targets, only caught 3 of them. He hasn't had double-digit targets since week 2. It's the last time he's had double-digit targets in a game. It's just not the way the offense has been running. So despite my concerns, and I have a multitude of concerns when it comes to Jared Goff outdoors against the Bears, I am going to still go with Jameson Williams because I just think the upside there is too much. You just need that one big play, and Deebo hasn't given it to you, really. And you would expect Deebo to work more with more of the running backs out, but that hasn't happened quite as much either. I could see Deebo Samuel somewhere else. That Brandon Ayuk contract is going to end up being a huge mistake. I said it at the time when it happened. I'm going to stick to it. I just think if you look at what Juwan Jennings gave you this year, what are you spending all this money for Brandon Ayuk? So all of a sudden now, they're going to be in a weird spot next year in the offseason. Another year older. They're going to have to make some moves here. Can they retool the way the Eagles did and bounce back? Sure. They absolutely have the talent to do that, but they're going to have to get a little younger, and they're going to have to jettison some other contracts, and Deebo might be one of them when all said and done. So I'm going to look for Jameson Williams and hope for that one big play today.
All right, moving on here. The Bucs secondary is a topic of discussion. It allows for some underneath stuff here. Jake Ferguson for Dallas here could be in play. Or is it Kyle Pitts? Now, Michael Penix will be under center. We know with young quarterbacks, he'll often look at a nice little safety valve. Could Pitts be that guy here against the Giants? Joe, Ferguson or Pitts, what says you?
Man, there is a morbid curiosity that makes me want to say Pitts, because young quarterbacks typically, check down real quick, look for the tight ends, look for the quick outlet passes. So that's where Kyle Pitts could shine, especially against the New York Giants. I think Ferguson's the safer play against the Tampa secondary. Tampa's a team you could throw on, and Cooper Rush has had some decent moments there. So because we're in the playoffs and because I don't want to get shut out here, I'm going to just try to play it safe here with Ferguson, take my maybe underwhelming floor, because the downside of Kyle Pitts is a much lower floor, because none of us know what the Penix start's going to look like. A couple preseason snaps is not enough to go on here for us to see what Michael Penix looks like in week 16 in the NFL. So intrigued, definitely excited to see what Kyle Pitts might be with Michael Penix. But at the end of the day, I'm going to lead towards Ferguson in the matchup there too. Just can't do it yet.
All right, moving on here. A quarterback question. Tua against San Francisco, or is it Matthew Stafford at the Jets? This has to be a setup question here, because, the lean is extreme for me, and I know I see Joe's evil smile when we're talking about the Jets, but it's a cold day here. It's a cold day in New York, Joe. But
It is. Look, Tua is higher ranked, and I understand that. Waddle is out. San Francisco is a team that's kind of clinging on there, but just something about Matthew Stafford with something on the line that I want to go there. I want to go with Matthew Stafford, knowing that the playoffs are close. Matthew Stafford's time in the league, I think, is borrowed right now. I know last week was so bad. He has been up and down. He has had, just to run through the last couple weeks, QB 20, then QB 5, QB 8, QB 22, QB 9, QB 26. So it's a lot of up and down. If you are afraid of the variance, I understand. And Tua at home is the safer play. So I think right now, if you are a team that has withstood some of the early games and you have Tua, you just play Tua. You take the points and you make it simple. But if you're playing from behind, I think it's intriguing to take a look at Matthew Stafford and what he might be able to do, because that Jet secondary just has not played very well. They're giving up points to Mac Jones. They're giving up points all over the place. I just have a feeling here that Matthew Stafford with something to play for is going to be dangerous, and you're not going to get goose egg back-to-back weeks from Cooper Kupp. I just don't see that happening. The problem is everybody's shaking out of their memory what they last saw of a Matthew Stafford, and I get that. So 2 is the safe play. I think Stafford is the upside swing.
All right, continuing on here. Oh, I love this one. This is great. Okay, Bryce Young has Arizona, or Michael Penix has the Giants here. So this is a great start-sit question. Now, for me, it's Young kind of is the devil I know, dare I say. Penix is the devil I don't. Exactly. But I am excited to see the devil I don't. So isn't that what the devil's supposed to do? He is the spirit of temptation. Joe, take it away.
Once again, I think this is a floor ceiling kind of thing. So in Superflex leagues, if you're looking at a situation where you're in a good spot, you play Bryce Young, you take your points and get out, because there's variance here with Penix. It could be great. It could be terrible. We don't know. If you are from behind already and you're in a spot where you're playing against Lamar Jackson and he's already, crushing you, and you're looking around, you're like, man, this is not a good situation for me right now. Penix is the big swing. That's the home run swing, because maybe he just shows up there against the Giants at home and just starts throwing, 30, 40-yard passes all over the place. The next thing you know, we're all very excited. And he has some rushing mobility too. But let's not pretend like, Bryce Young hasn't been better, because he has. He has been much better. He's at home. The Cardinals are a team that's reeling a little bit. So, again, Penix is the home run swing. I'll take the points and get out, try to get to the finals, because the variance of Penix is huge. Also, tons of injuries to get to. As always, it's late in the season. This is what happens in the NFL. We already talked about Kamara and Derek Carr being out for the Saints. So officially the Saints are without anybody from their starting defense at the beginning of the year. Who else is out? Who's in? We'll tell you when we return. Don't go anywhere. More FST after this.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here. It's time now to get into the injury update, dare I say, the most important one we've ever done on this show. Like Joe likes to say, until next week. But all kidding aside, I mean, think here we are. It's 9:15 a.m. on the East Coast. So for most people waking up, we are the first line of defense for you. Quality, great programming coming up, following us, taking you all the way up to kickoff. But we're going to be the ones that hatch the egg. So this injury update is really important. Not to put pressure on you, Joe, but I know you walk the hallowed halls of SportsGrid. So what are the insiders telling you? Take it away.
Well, look, let's start with another quarterback, Geno Smith. It looks like he is going to play. The alternative would not be a good one. It would be Sam Howell. And look, the Seahawks are trying to hang on here. Hang on to week 18, because you get to week 18 and you're tied. You got a game where you could win and get in against the Rams. So you got to just throw everything to the wall right now. So despite the knee issue, looks like Geno Smith is going to play. If he comes out of that game at all, then Sam Howell would be the guy. So keep a close eye on that. I made the joke, but it's really not a joke. The Saints continue to just lose player after player. Their entire starting lineup from week one is done. I mean, they're gone. You did have Chris Olave with a limited practice, but you also had all of a sudden Marquez Valdes-Scantling with an illness, not practice on Friday. So we don't know how he is going to play. So if he is a game time decision on Monday night, you might have to make some sort of adjustment. You might want to make sure that you are starting somebody this week, today, not tomorrow, because you can't afford all of a sudden him get sick and not be able to play, especially in Green Bay. It's going to be terrible weather. Zach Ertz with the concussion is questionable for the Eagles. We'll get you update on him later today on some of our shows. Sterling Shepard was removed from the injury report, so that's good. So he will be playing against the Cowboys this week. Also on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield removed from the injury report, so he is going to play against the Cowboys. Baker Mayfield, our Intercontinental MVP. The guy, the worker title guy, the guy who's getting it done here with a lot less, keeping that team relevant, really good. Also with the Bucs, Bucky Irving, hip and a back, not on the injury report. That's a good thing. A lot of concern going into this week if he would play. Tony Pollard, let's talk about him. The ankle is questionable right now. Apparently, we're getting news that he is going to play. If anything changes, it would obviously be Tajay Spears getting more of that workload. But I would imagine maybe with Tony Pollard on the ankle, he doesn't get a full workload, so you can see a little bit more of a split. Do with that information as you will when you look at your rosters. Maybe don't overthink something, but if you have another really good option at running back in a shallow league, maybe Tony Pollard isn't the greatest start today, potentially in this matchup. Noah Fant was removed from the injury report as well. Shoulder issue for DK Metcalf. He is also going to play. So everybody's trying to gut it out, it looks like. Now, Zach Charbonnet was removed from the injury report, but that might not matter because Ken Walker is going to play today, and he is back to full. So now that we have Ken Walker back full, Charbonnet will most likely take a back seat. So Charbonnet, useful last week. This week, it's back to Ken Walker. That's kind of been the thing in the MO with this backfield. So, Matt, a lot of moving parts there, as you can see, but it looks like what we're getting here, once again, the teams that have something to play for, these players are finding ways to play. Yeah. Does that give you any pause, though, of the guys like, well, you're not really healthy. I know you're not. So do you feel good about starting a Ken Walker this week, or would you be looking for alternative options? I know they're limited at running back this time of year, but would you be looking to start maybe a Rachaad White over a Tony Pollard? Those are two guys that are very close in ranks this week.
Look, at the end of the day, you're going to use the resources that are in front of you. You'll use the projections. You'll use everything. But then you got to use your hunch. And if you believe that if one is going to do better than the other, if you've done your due diligence and your research, you're going to make the right decision. If you haven't done those things and you just kind of go, yeah, I guess that guy, then you can't be too upset if you come out on the wrong side of it. Joe, I know there's more injury updates. I mean, my gosh, it is week 1 million of the NFL. Anything else that we need to know about?
Yeah, Brenton Strange, who was questionable this week, he is going to play. He had a shoulder issue coming off a huge game last week against the Jets. So that's good if you're looking to stream a tight end. Can he repeat last week's performance? It's not impossible. I think people are going to be a little bit more aware of him now. So that's the one thing going against him. But at this point in time, any healthy tight end is a tight end you can think about rostering and playing this week. You are trying to get every point you possibly can. And it looks like he and Mac Jones certainly have a rapport. Nice amount of volume from him last week. Also on that injury report to get to, Tyrone Tracy with the ankle is questionable against the Falcons. He looks to play, though, this week. You will also see Drake London, who was questionable earlier in the week, play. In that same game, Malik Neighbors with a knee and a foot removed from the injury report. He will play. He's a volume play this week. Drew Lock back under center. So, again, we didn't put Drew Lock in the new quarterback segment because he's kind of a new old quarterback because he's been back and forth a few times now. So Drew Lock is going to play in this game today. We'll see how that goes. Also, back at quarterback and under center, Aiden O'Connell should be good to go, quote unquote, from Antonio Pierce against the Jaguars. So the good news for those people who have Brock Bowers is O'Connell playing quarterback. That's been the guy who's been able to really unlock him. You don't want Desmond Ridder under center if you've got Brock Bowers and you're still alive in the playoffs. Also, Michael Pittman for the Colts with a back issue. He is going to play this week, so good for Michael Pittman. I'm still concerned about the health of Josh Downs. I think all of us are concerned whether or not we're going to get the best version of Anthony Richardson or the worst version of Anthony Richardson. You know, he has been such an up and down player. He is a player that has a ton of athletic ability. He is still very young, very green. I think there needs to be a lot of patience with Anthony Richardson to help him grow. I think he's got the right coach. Shane Steichen's a really good coach. I just don't know if the organizations at the NFL level have this kind of patience. And it makes you wonder, again, when you look around the league and you see some of the guys that have, sat for a year and how they've done, and some other quarterbacks that get thrust into situations and haven't performed well. It does seem like we're in a sink or swim moment in the NFL when it comes to young quarterback play. And I'm curious what your take is on it too. I know you're a baseball guy first and foremost, but when you're watching these young quarterbacks come in the league, like, do you look at them and say, maybe you should be in the bullpen? Maybe you should be a guy that, doesn't get start right away for the first 6 weeks, get some time, get some confidence, and then goes out there and make a start. Because it feels like, Matt, the guys that get more time tend to have some better success rates.
No, that's life. It's wisdom. You know what I mean? Go have a conversation. Go on with that quiet guy with gray hair and wrinkles, and then go have a conversation with that other kid over there. It's just, that's how it is. But here's the thing. Forget which sport. I'm a wagering guy. I'm a betting guy. And I want to have the security, the best bet of some of these kids coming out. I want to know the deal. When they falter like this, I'm completely off of them. I don't have time for it. When you get it together, my money will find you, Joe.
There you go. The money will find you. Speaking of the money following you, we're maybe going to look into the future when we come back and take a look at maybe how to make some money on Mike Evans, who is chasing a bit of history with yet another 1,000-yard season. We'll talk about it when we come back right after this.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road manager is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports. Today, Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia giving you everything you need in order to dominate. But Joe, it's impossible to play if you don't have any money. It's just that's the catch-22 of the whole thing. And if I got to borrow from you after I win, I got to get back to you. So let's look to the future here and try to make some future front pocket money if we can, and back pocket money as well. When we do this segment each and every week, we find a way to find the value. Joe's big on cashing out on a lot of wagers when the odds move in our favor. But we have one here that's great. We've been talking about Mike Evans and what a treat it's been to be alive during the time of Mike Evans. A lot of people underappreciate what Mike Evans has done. But now looking to record a record 1,000 or more yard receiving season, there's an opportunity to wager upon it. So, Joe, take it away here. This is fascinating. What do you have?
Yeah, look, as I said before, if he averages 103.5 over the last 3 games, Mike Evans will get to this mark. It seemed like very far-fetched. He had an injury. I think he was at 335 when he came back from the injury, and we're all kind of going, I don't know if this is going to happen. Guess what? It looks like we're getting real close. It's definitely within the range of outcomes. You can get right now plus 120 to keep the streak alive. He's already done it for 10 years. This would be 11. And just for context, too, with Mike Evans, he is number 24 on the all-time list, 12,429 yards, ahead of Brandon Marshall, but behind Art Monk. Other active folks still in the league, there's only one right now, DeAndre Hopkins at 21 with 12,958 yards. He had some huge seasons back with the Texans in the day. So Mike Evans has been the model of consistency, which is also stunning. You know, he did play with Tom Brady, but that was a short window. And he's played with Baker Mayfield the last couple of years. But the quarterback play for Mike Evans has been a lot of Mike Glennons and a lot of Josh McCowns and a lot of different quarterbacks over the years. I think that's what makes this run so special. If you look at Jerry Rice's consistency, right? You look at some of these other wide receivers that have had really good quarterback play with really consistency there. That's why they are where they are. Mike Evans has had anything but consistent quarterback play through most of his career. And in this back half of his career, he's had some better ones, which has really kept the streak alive. But I don't think it gets talked about enough how good he's been. You know, Jameis Winston throwing, 30 touchdowns and 30 picks is not always the way to success. So he has done a lot without some of the most consistent quarterback play. And I think that's what makes this record even more impressive. It's not even what he's doing right now, because people say, well, he's got more games to do it now. And that's fair. It's a fair assessment. But let's also not give him his flowers for doing what he did for so many years with a lot of quarterbacks where we were kind of shaking our head and going, who's playing quarterback for Tampa this week?
Well, if they were wearing the old school 1982 uniforms that Doug Williams is pictured in, then they can be whomever they want. All right, Joe, here we go. I'm gonna give you a little work here. I'm gonna need you to pull up the schedules, the remaining teams that these teams are gonna play, because we have best regular season record for this season. You would think it's the Chiefs, where they 14-1. They sit at plus 115, but there's still a few games left to play, and Joe's gonna tell us who they're against. The Eagles plus 195. The Lions are 4-1. The Vikings are 9-1. Best regular season record is the Chiefs to lose, unless there's some. Are they playing the Bills, the Eagles, and the Lions the next 3 games, Joe?
No, but the Chiefs number has moved after yesterday. So yesterday coming into the actual was plus 115. Now you're getting it even or even minus money in most spots.
Sure.
It was a big win for them yesterday. Now they're going to play on Christmas Day, switching gears, playing against the Steelers, and we'll see if George Pickens is healthy for that game. If he's not, then, might be looking at the Chiefs again and running away with this thing. So the Eagles at plus 195, I think they've got the best shot. The Eagles defensively playing really good football, schedule-wise, really works out for them. And the Lions, I think it's the injuries. Like, I'm writing this one off. I don't think the Lions have a shot at this one. And the Minnesota Vikings, the team that nobody really seems to give any love to, those Minnesota Vikings who are right there. I mean, they are keeping pace here the entire season, basically, with the Detroit Lions. They are 12-2. I don't know if there's a 12-2 team I've seen in my lifetime where people talk less about them being a threat to win the Super Bowl. They play great defense. Brian Flores is probably going to be a head coach in the league somewhere else next year. And I know it's Sam Darnold's their quarterback, but you know what? The Vikings just keep winning games and playing defense, and I think they're a little bit more dangerous than people realize.
All right, Joe, with the time that we have left, who wins the Super Bowl and why?
Look, I think there's a finite number of teams here. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, and I think it's closing and closing. I am not feeling Detroit anymore. They're plus 500 now. That's not where I'm looking. I'm looking at the Chiefs for value. I'm looking at the Eagles. Also, especially if Josh Allen wins the MVP, the track record of guys winning the MVP and winning the Super Bowl, not good in the last 20 years. Not good at all. It just so happens. It's a trend. It's what happens. Ask Lamar Jackson. Wow. But the way you win late is playing good on the offensive line, good on the defensive line, winning at the point of attack. That's something the Eagles do very well. Maybe they're dysfunctional like the 70s Yankees, but you know what? Those teams won some championships too. We come back, more FST when we return. Don't go anywhere. It's time for Fantasy Over Under.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road manager is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate. And while our great production team behind the glass of Cool Hand Luke and TD Jake, and of course Patrick with the hat trick, he's always here as well, as they debate the merits of great authors throughout time, Joe and I are going to debate the merits of overs and unders. Yes, folks, it is time now for the FST Fantasy Over-Under. Joe, each and every week as the games go on and I see the stats come across the crawl on my screen, I think of you. And in the beginning, I like it. The 1 o'clock game's like, Joe was right about that. Joe was right. By the time halftime of the 4 o'clock game, I hate the fact that you're dancing through my head. It really starts to bother me. All right, I'm going to calm myself down here. Jared Goff, he's playing outdoors today. Chilly Soldier Field. 262.5 passing yards is the number. Is it over or under for the indoor cat?
Yeah, he's also playing without David Montgomery, which I don't love. Like, this is a David Montgomery spot, right? Cold weather, let's grind it out. Let's Dan Campbell, the football, all that stuff. You know, Jahmyr Gibbs is great. I'm not taking away anything from him. But the dynamic duo, you know, not being a duo anymore, this is the spot where it hurts them the most. I'm going to do some stats for you with Jared Goff, okay? You ready? Let's go. In domes, let's see. Passer rating of 102.2. Outdoors, it drops to 89.7. He has taken 87 sacks in a dome. He's taken 135 sacks outdoors. Interceptions, just 28 in a dome in his career. Outdoors, 52. So, yeah, it's a different cat when he's outside. And it does worry me a little bit. Could he go out there and this offense is just humming along and it's all fine against the Bears who are completely dysfunctional? Of course. But there is enough data to suggest that this could be an under. There is enough data to suggest without David Montgomery that maybe this offense doesn't run like clockwork the way it used to. I know Amon-Ra is coming off a career game. I know they were slinging the ball all over the place, but that's in the Coors Field of the NFL in Detroit. Chicago's a tougher place to throw the football. And Jared Goff has played very well. This is not a knock on Jared Goff. This is just data. And right now, when you look at the data, I think that's a high number. So I'd be looking for the under on that number because 262.5 suggests a couple things. Number one, Jared Goff plays really well outside. Okay. And then number two, the Bears challenge him and they do enough that he has to throw for 262. That's also a bit curious to me. So that combination is enough for me to think this is like an under 250 game for him. Probably still a win for the Lions. But these in-division games get weird. And I know the Bears looked so bad last time we saw them, but don't be shocked if they gear up again at home where they played much better football and look a little bit better against a Lions team that is beaten up physically and mentally, I think, after last week.
All right. Yeah, and I mean, look, outdoor sacks hurt, right? Keep your sacks indoors. All right, that's a public service announcement from me to everybody. All right, Big Mike, Killer Mike, Mike Evans, 70.5 receptions, 70.5 receiving yards. Joe, you gave the stat. He needs to have 103.5 over the remaining games this season to once again top 1,000 yards. So 70.5 seems attainable, but I want to hear from you. Big Mike, 70.5, yes or no?
You're like Jimmy Dugan in in a league of their own giving advice. That's what you are. Yeah, ask Matt Striker to sign something for you. All right, let's talk about this. This number continues to climb. This morning, it's all the way up to 80.5 now. So again, the average is just shooting through the roof here with this one because people's expectations are high. And the matchup is pretty good. You know, the Dallas Cowboys have certainly been a secondary and defense you can attack. They've showed a little bit more respect for themselves last week, but it was against the Carolina Panthers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a much better football team. I would still go over this mark because I do think the force feeding of the football is there, but at the same time, 80.5, I don't like as much as 70.5. So let's also recognize that the margin for error is getting thinner and thinner here. I might also be pivoting to looking to Bucky Irving and some other guys there as well, because I think if you look at Bucky Irving's rushing 55.5, that might be a better approach today. You're getting a lot more leeway with that number. Now, Mike Evans has gone over 80.5 in 2 of his last 3 games, but he hasn't gone over that between week 13 all the way back to week 4. So that is also something to understand. You know, Mike Evans is a guy that scores a lot of touchdowns, been doing a lot of things, but prolific totals have not always been Mike Evans' thing. And this force feeding him of the football might not work out the way everybody wants. So once again, very chalky. Everybody's in on it. It's a good story, but investability. Let's talk about Bucky Irving instead. So Bucky Irving got hurt week 14, but week 15 over this number, week 13 over this number, week 12 over this number, week 10 over this number. To me, this is one where, 55.5, you're seeing this in some markets all the way in the low 60s already. I would be looking for the over in this one for sure. That he has been that guy, and that combination of him and Rachaad White has been very productive for this team. And especially with Cade Otton now too, I would expect that you're probably going to get a little bit more Rachaad White in that passing game also. So look for the RBs and maybe pivot away from all the Mike Evans love if you're making investments today.
All right, so you mentioned RBs. Let's continue this conversation. Chase Brown, he's been a vital part of the Bengals offense that Joe Burrow seemingly called embarrassing. 27.5 receiving yards through the air for Chase Brown, over or under.
I've been betting this for weeks now, and it keeps hitting every single week. It has hit every week since week 9, except last week in week 15. Boo against the Tennessee Titans. But really, it's because the Tennessee Titans didn't really push them at all. Now, granted, you could be in a similar situation with Cleveland, so it was a little bit more tenuous. However, the health of T. Higgins, I think, opens things up here a little bit more for Chase Brown. It's not a huge number. And Joe Burrow, we talked about how good Joe Burrow's been. He has been on a stretch run here where he has been absolutely incredible. 6 straight games with 250 or more passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. I think he continues to throw the ball regardless. And the fact that defense is just not good, maybe they do give up some points here to DTR and the Cleveland Browns. And at the end of the day, we can get this over on 27.5 for Chase Brown also. I love what Chase Brown's been able to do. I think this backfield is going to be his going forward. So the good news is you're going to sign Jamar Chase to a huge contract. Okay. You're going to have Chase Brown next year. Okay. T. Higgins is going to walk, so you're going to have to fill that secondary wide receiver spot. So right now, you're looking at a piece here with the Cincinnati Bengals where you have to retool the defense and figure out what's going on in that secondary, because whatever you got going on right now just has not worked all season.
All right. The Los Angeles Rams are in Joe's neck of the woods. I understand a few guys may or may not be staying in Joe's basement. Puka Nacua, 90.5 receiving yards, over or under. You mentioned about the Rams have something to play for. Matthew Stafford, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold out here in Jersey and in New York. But Nacua, over 90.5 receiving yards. What do you think? Over or under?
I think this number was too big. And a lot of people agreed with me because it was bet, and now it's at 86.5. So it's been lowered a little bit, along with the expectations. Now 86.5, I think, is a much better number to be working with than the 90.5. It gives us a little bit more leeway if we do get that disappointing Matt Stafford game. Again, the up and down roller coaster of Stafford has been a lot this year. He is outside. It is cold. All of these things. But they have something to play for, and the Rams can make the playoffs. And Sean McVay, yet again, doing a tremendous job of keeping this team together and focused. Despite all the injuries and all the issues, guess what? The Rams are still relevant, and Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league, and he keeps proving it time and time again. And then the last one that we're going to talk about is James Cook, because James Cook, we discussed already, the Patriots struggle against the run, struggle to tackle. This should be a game that the Buffalo Bills theoretically have in control, and if you have control of the game, you're going to run out the clock. So maybe you get some Ray Davis in there too, but James Cook, 64.5. To me, this is an over. I know he is up and down. I know the game log can be smash or pass. I get it. But this week, I think it's a James Cook game, and I think you could even be in a situation where you could ladder this up to 100 and probably still get it. I think it's in that range. We don't get them very often, but it's that perfect storm. So cold weather coming in, certainly going to have an effect on a lot of these games. And Matt, when you start looking ahead for the Buffalo Bills, it seems like the Buffalo Bills are going to be coasting into the playoffs. Do you think that's a good thing, or is it better to continue to get challenged like some other of these teams are? That's a big question that I have. So we'll talk more about that when we come back. I know we're running out of time here. We also got waiver wire to talk about too. So there's still some guys floating around there that might be able to help your rosters today, especially when you consider some of the guys that are already out or being ruled out. Again, week 16, health is always an issue. So don't go anywhere here on FST. We'll be right back with the waiver wire report and talk about the hot and cold going into the fantasy playoffs.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia. Time to dive into the waiver wire. Joe, my friend, I think on behalf of every single person that watches this show, thank you for the work that you have done the entire season, especially on the waiver wire. So with that said, let's get back to work, my friend. The first name on the list is Drake May. What's that matchup like today? He's widely available, 8 out of 10 leagues. Talk to us about Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May's been a better fantasy performer than I think people realize, and they'll see the Bills matchup this week and I don't want to start him there in Superflex. I'm going to go start this guy, just, Michael Penix. But you know what? At the end of the day, Drake May's getting some rushing yards, and that's helping him quite a bit. Is he having prolific days? No, but he is QB 22 on the year. That being said, he did have some games where, again, he was barely playing. So if you're looking at fantasy points per game average, he's actually higher than that. And he's finished as a fringy QB1 the last few weeks. So going back to week 10, QB 16, QB 14, 17, 10, then the bye, and then 11 last week against the Arizona Cardinals. So again, the rushing equity of Drake May and the playmaking ability is there. They need to surround him with more help. That's the thing. So if somebody had dropped Drake May chasing somebody else off the waiver wire like Michael Penix, I would be running to pick up Drake May and start him in my second QB spot. I think it's a really good addition there. Next week against the Chargers, okay, a tough matchup. The Chargers are always going to be feisty. We know that. But at the same time, I think Drake May is a building block where you look at the Patriots going forward and saying, all right, we got this right. Now, will there be a one-and-done coaching situation with Gerard Mayo? I don't know, but it's starting to feel a little weird. I think the expectations were a little higher. Maybe they shouldn't have been, considering what this roster looked like. But I think the biggest disappointment is the way this defense is played, which is supposed to be the Gerard Mayo strong suit. And I think when coaches don't show you their strong suit going well, sometimes that gets called into question. And Mike Vrabel's still floating around out there, and Mike Vrabel wants to be head coach of the New England Patriots. Make no bones about it. It's where he wants to be. That's the job for him. And it's whether or not we're going to get more than a year out of Gerard Mayo. We'll see. But Drake May, at least they've got the quarterback. And I think this week, again, despite the tough matchup against Buffalo, on paper, Buffalo Bills defense can be scored upon. And Drake May, with the rushing equity, I think is a guy that you can get 15 points out of this week.
All right. You gave the injury update in a previous segment that Tony Pollard was going to be good to go. How does that impact Tajay Spears? He's available in about half of leagues. Talk to us.
Well, the reason I'm looking at Spears is because if somebody did not pick him up, I want to pick him up as insurance for next week. What if that injury all of a sudden pops off again and the ankle is worse when he plays, or he gets rolled again. Like, that's very possible. So why chase Spears next week and lose him? Next week, in terms of options, he's got the Jacksonville Jaguars in the last game of the season here, in the fantasy playoffs, I should say, in the championship week. So that'd be a good start. He would be an easy RB2 in that scenario. So if Tajay Spears is still available, or somebody had him and then, well, I'm going to drop him now because Pollard's playing, I'd pick him up if you could. Because if he does end up with more playing time, or something happens to Pollard, well, guess what? Tajay Spears is going to be a guy you wish you had picked up. So this is, again, more about being proactive than reactive. And it costs you nothing to find out on a Sunday to just pick him up and stash him on the back end of your roster, because the health of Tony Pollard and the season taking its toll. You can even get a spot here where Tony Pollard just calls it a day after this week if they lose again, and they just say, you know what, the ankle's really bothering me. Tajay is going to go start the rest of the year, and we'll see and evaluate what we're getting out of them, because the Titans, I think, are a team in evaluation mode, like a lot of teams in the NFL. So look for Spears to be a guy also to add this week. Can you play him? Probably not, unless it's a really deep league. But if that's the case, he's probably rostered already.
All right, now let's go to the New Orleans Saints, who've been kind of like a Big Lots, if you will, which actually is closing all their stores along with Party City.
And Party City, I just found out.
Yeah.
All these,
thank you so much
where will we go for our
service.
Halloween masks and plastic cutlery? Where will we go?
Some store, some smart entrepreneur will buy up all the inventory, just like I think Five Below did with Toys R Us. But the Saints, man, and no one can stay healthy. Kendre Miller now, he's the hot name. He's the guy available, and I'd say, 7.5 out of 10 leagues. Joe, I mean, I know things are bad, but are they this bad?
They're this bad for some of us. He is ranked at RB 24, so he's on that fringe. He is in half PPR leagues, I think, a flex-worthy guy, depending on what your roster looks like. And again, do I love the matchup? Absolutely not. The game script's not in his way, in his favor. Certainly not the quarterback play in his favor, with Spencer Rattler too, who's turned over the ball a lot. So you don't love it. You like how he looked last week at home on the carpet, but it's a little bit different when you're outside in Green Bay. So is he the best start in the world? No. Is he a guy that you should be rostering? Yes. Playing him this week really is circumstantial. It has to do with who else is available, how many injuries you've taken. I'll tell you this much. If I have MVS, who might be a game-time decision now tomorrow, or I have Kendre Miller, I'm very happy I have Kendre Miller to pop in that spot there as a flex potentially. So, and it's come down to that for a lot of teams. It's been a real tough year for injuries. I feel like we say that every year, but it feels like every year it gets worse. And every year the season gets longer, and every year these players get bigger, stronger, and faster. And that is just part of the equation now, is having the depth, which is why it's important, in shows like this, that we talk so much and address about depth of roster, and we try to stay ahead of roster trends. And we've done a really good job in this segment from week one all the way to now. Like week one, Sunday morning, we gave you Jordan Mason before that Monday night game. And guess what? That turned out to be one of the best waiver wire claims of the year.
All right, let's keep the trend going here. Romeo Doubs is more of an indictment on the Packers' offense in their season. He's available in just over half of the leagues, but let's talk. Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, health has been an issue last couple of weeks, but available in about 50% of leagues. He's got touchdown equity. He's got a good matchup there against the Saints, too. There's no Marshawn Lattimore anymore. So in a standard or a half PPR league, I think Doubs is a guy that's in play. Again, touchdown equity's there. Christian Watson could be the guy. They spread the ball around. You just don't know who it's going to be week to week, but it's a great matchup. You imagine they get some extra opportunities too. However, the Green Bay Packers have shown you running first is what they want to do, which is going to make them a little bit hard to handle in the playoffs with this new identity they found.
All right, recency bias is a thing. Brenton Strange falls into that category, 21% rostered, so available in about 8 out of 10 leagues. Joe, close the segment out talking about Brenton Strange.
Yeah, tight end has been very difficult all year long to find. If you can stream a tight end right now, Brenton Strange is the guy for it. The confidence level that you have in guys like Jake Ferguson or even Kyle Pitts at this point is low. So what you saw out of Strange last week was volume, and that's something against the Raiders you could see again, and that would make him very valuable in round 2 of the playoffs. The 3 and out when we return, and saying goodbye to a legend. Don't go anywhere.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here, along with a great crew behind the glass, Cool Hand Luke, TD Jake, and of course Patrick with the hat trick. And we wanted to give the gift of time here, and that's the one thing that you can never get back. So think about it. The time that you spend doing whatever it is that you're doing, think you can never get that time back. So we want to give that time and give that time to people. And I just wanted to take this time to recognize a childhood hero, but someone that embodied a game for me, and it's Ricky Henderson. For those that don't know, Ricky Henderson sadly passed this past couple of days ago, I believe. And the idea for me is that I've often argued that Ricky Henderson is one of maybe the top 10 greatest baseball players of all time. People tell me, you're nuts. You know, the object of baseball is to hit safely and to score runs. Ricky Henderson is just outside the top 25 in hits all time, and I do believe he's the all-time leader in runs scored. Again, just the time that I want to give to a player like that. Thank you on behalf of all of us from a generation. Joe, I know you have some feelings and memories about Ricky Henderson as well.
Yeah, he is absolutely one of the greatest to ever play the game, and not just because of the records too, but if you watch him play, I mean, not only was he great, but he was exciting, and the entertainment factor of sports, Ricky had that, and Ricky would tell you that Ricky had that, and he would tell you in the first person. The Ricky Henderson stories go on for miles. Gone too soon, just 65 years old. If you look at the stat line for him, the all-time leader in stolen bases, 1,406. No one is coming close to that ever. That's another one of those unbreakable records. A career 279 hitter with a 401 on base percentage, 820 OPS, the all-time runs leader. We talked about this before the show. Matt and I were talking. We're big baseball nerds, and the idea of the game, the object of the game is to score runs, right? And nobody scored more than Ricky Henderson. If you asked me to make a team up of my all-time favorite players that I saw in my lifetime or the best players, he would be the first guy I would stick out there, lead off in left field, and Ricky Henderson would be that dude. Incredible seasons, would dominate the game. You know, just getting on first base, stealing second, stealing third, and getting sack fly at home, or even making you make a mistake. With Ricky Henderson also, the incredible thing is to look back at the consistency that he played with over the years. Yeah, he played for a long time. Yeah, he played with a lot of different teams. But, you know, Ricky was a personality and an incredibly fun one at that. Again, gone way too soon. I remember as a kid, Matt, I don't know if you used to do this, but, you know, in our house, we used to have in the apartment in Brooklyn, I remember we had the throw pillows, and I would put it out there like it was first base, and I would take my lead like Ricky Henderson. This is how I learned to watch the pickoff moves, and I would dive back into first base, to the couch cushion. Now I get yelled at all the time, and the shag carpet in our house. Lots of rug burns, lots of good memories. But Ricky Henderson, man, that was the inspiration. Watching him as a kid, growing up in New York, he was playing for the Yankees by then. And I don't know about you, but did you have any Ricky in your game when you were a kid? You little flamboyance, a little Matt talking about Matt
for us,
person?
No. For us, it was catching the ball and snatching it away. Remember, Ricky would do that, and then I had a little league coach kind of break me of that immediately. But yeah, and that's the thing. As a kid, you find yourself inspired by these players, but these players are doing it in a realm where kids are watching and they understand. I think it's the same today. I'm not going to say that today's generation's athletes, but inspiration. Having something, I want to do this and be like that. I like the way this makes me feel. To me, that's the joy of childhood. And I'm having the pleasure, thank you, God, of raising 2 small children. It allows me to stay a child forever. And I think the one thing that I can take away from everything is, folks out there, stay a kid. Sports unites us all, independent of where we live, the color of our skin, political, whatever it is. Stay a kid. Remember the first time you fell in love with sports? Let's all be little kids again, having these conversations. That's what I love to do each and every Sunday morning with you, Joe, and with this great team. Thank you to SportsGrid, and thank you to everybody out there. Joe, close us out, my friend.
Yeah, I want to echo that sentiment, especially this time of year. Right? It's tough to find a place where we all can show up together and commune, and we're very lucky to do that over sports still. And even though it divides us and different fandom and all that stuff, and there's a lot of hate and love and things like that, and at least it's a place we can all come together and do that as a unit, which is still very special, I think, which is why I know we're very grateful to be a part of it. 3 and out. Let's take a look at division races. We got the NFC, the South, and the West still up for grabs. Who knows? Maybe even the North of the NFC. Just saying, those Vikings don't go away, folks. They refuse to go away. New quarterbacks. That's what we're watching. How they impact these games positively or possibly negatively. Who else might pop up as some new fantasy useful pieces because of these new QBs and the way that they play? That's going to be something to watch. And of course, outdoor golf. Can he shake off the trend? We'll see. That's going to be a really interesting one to watch today. Lots of football left to play. Lots of fantasy championships left to be had. Stay on SportsGrid too to make all the right investments with pro football today coming up right after us. So stick around on the grid. We've got a great team here, too. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. From Matt, I'm Joey P. See you next time, kids. Enjoy the holidays.
Football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I'm actually not even on a side today.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. Why are you on Texas?
I gave them a chance. Maybe not me as the overwhelming authority in college football, but entering that game on this set to you guys, I said there was one elite defense entering the matchup in Austin back to end out October. It's not the Bulldogs like it used to be. It is Texas.
College football today, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on